Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular people talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me this evening is Fresh with a Soda.
Soda. Water.
Mike Ostertag. Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to be back in the studio this evening. So,
A soda.
yeah, a Soda.
I get it.
So we have a very interesting show set up for this evening, talking about picking what do we need to model. So, Mike, have you ever thought about what it is that you want to model?
Nope, never. I've never changed my mind. I've never hemmed or hawed. Nope, never. Nope.
Never, not once, never.
Nope, not once. And
that's crazy.
I'm lying.
Yes, you are. You are lying. So this is going to be a fun show tonight, where we're going to kind of keep.
Hello, little Dorsch.
You want to wave to everyone on the camera? See him? Yep. Son is here. He's good night, buddy.
Night. Good night, Mike.
Good night, Henry.
All right. There he is. Good night, buddy. Oh, jeez. All right.
With the headbutt.
Yeah, with the headbutt. Lost a tooth, but we're still going strong. Okay. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna have an interesting, lighthearted, hopefully no fighting ensues this evening, on picking about what we want to model. But then we're also gonna keep the prototype theme going here, and we're going to be talking about a certain locomotive this evening, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we are. We're going to do a lots.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a lots this evening. So.
It's actually kind of interesting. That one's actually got. I dove deep with that one. It was for only 15 sets of these things ever being made. There was like a lot out there about them. It was crazy about the stuff that I found out about them. It's interesting. So.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't been following us lately, the first, I guess we could call it quarter of the year, the first quarter here, so from January until about now, we've been basing all of our, I guess, shows around the prototype, modeling the prototype, and how certain modelers came about picking their railroads of choice and how they model them. And then also, if you were going to start your own prototypical model railroad, how do you do that? By drawing a track plan, those types of things. So tonight, though, we're going to take it one step back, and we're going to talk about, well, how do you pick what it is that you want to model? And so I'm going to bring back a blast from the past here to kind of kick us off on this horrible discussion. I mean, wonderful discussion. So I think this is...
I remember that book.
Yes, this book. So this was my first model railroading book, The ABCs of Model Railroading. I think Jim Hediger was the one who penned this. And I got it from Focus Hobby Shop in Fond du Lac. Little shout out to Focus Hobby Shops. They're still around. And this was when I was first getting into model railroading. And my dad said, hey, let's get you a book to talk about, or to get you started in model railroading. And this is, again, hashtag not sponsored. We don't sponsor Kalmbach, but it's got all sorts of good material. Actually, I wish they would still publish this, because it's kind
really
of
a good beginner's guide, isn't it?
It's a fantastic beginner's guide. And little secret to the YouTube community out here, pretty much all of the how-to videos that you guys see out there, they all come from this book. But anyways, They have a chapter in here which falls under the letter W. And it basically says what to model and why. So I thought that was really, really interesting. and I just want to see. I'm just going to read an excerpt from it, and um, and if and let's see if our conversation kind of goes this direction this evening. So I believe Jim wrote here. What if you want to model a real railroad, but don't know which one? So that's going to be what we're going to try and answer tonight, right? And so he goes on to explain that you should list the features of what you want to model, the types of trains and equipment, the types of scenery and structures, and the colors of the equipment, and other features about the railroad, like its operations. Read books, magazines, and see if those railroads that you research are the ones that have the features you want to model. So we're going to play the game tonight to see and kind of use ourselves as a case, as a I guess a case study to see if we fit those words of wisdom. So, and then of course we're going to be taking some. I'm going to be taking a few interesting responses to our I guess show intro on our Facebook group. Some people had some really insightful things to say, so I'm going to go ahead and read those too. Yeah. So I think the first and foremost, I do want to say, hey, welcome section crew. We got 120 people out there tonight. So, welcome to the show. And if you guys have questions or funny little comments, make sure you get them into the chat this evening. And we'll get them up on the show and read them out there for you. So again, if you're in the chat, make sure that you guys are keeping it civil, model railroad related, modeling related, and be nice to our admins out there because they're the little folks with the blue wrenches next to their name. If you get out of line, they will give you the stanky boot and kick you out of this evening's live stream. So, all right, let's have some fun. So, Mike, let's totally derail the conversation here.
Right out of the gate, right?
How do you pick a railroad to model?
You line them up on a wall, you throw a dart, and that's the end of it.
Bull. That's
right.
That's
not the way to do it.
That's not how you do it.
And I've been doing it wrong the whole time.
Yeah. No, so let's.
No, honestly,
go ahead.
Okay, so it's no big secret. I'm a big Milwaukee Road fan, but then I also get into liking like other railroads like Missouri Pacific and yes, even a little bit of the it was a great show. Nice. Perfect.
The shortest one.
And yes, even I do have some interest in the Sioux line, but not the Sioux line that everybody else is interested in. If that makes any sense. Okay, and there's and that's because of the Milwaukee Road connection to the line, the Sioux line connection to the line that I like. Mm-hmm. And so, I somebody had mentioned about me having squirrel syndrome. 100%, absolutely. There isn't a time like I'm going on my way up to Colorado. I'm already looking at railroads up there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, I always revert back to the Milwaukee Road.
Okay.
Even when I worked for the Green Bend Western, it was, Milwaukee Road. I didn't, there's a big chunk of me that would love to do the Green Bend Western because I have so much of a working knowledge of it. And I'm like from a first person perspective, you know what I mean? And so, but, like for me, the way it worked, the Milwaukee Road was kind of ingrained in me with my dad. And like, cause he hired out and was a brakeman for Milwaukee Road in 1971. And growing up, that was the only railroad I even knew about. I didn't know about any other railroads. And as I got older, I started finding out about these other railroads, but then I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But you know what? The Milwaukee Road did this, oh yeah, the Chicago Northwestern, that to me, the C&W was always the big railroad around the area. And I
Okay.
didn't want anything to do with the big railroad, the Milwaukee
So-
Road. I didn't know anything about the scope of the Milwaukee Road at that time.
Okay.
Just what
So-
I saw in and around town.
So
You know.
so you didn't want anything to do with the Milwaukee Road. Now, was this
No,
or with
not
the Chicago Northwestern? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I don't want anything to do with the Milwaukee Road.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, but so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
So was it because with your dad and being a competitor's railroad, is that
Yep,
is that the-
absolutely.
was that the driving force behind it? You just
Absolutely.
hanging out with your dad and it was double middle
Yep.
fingers to the ball and bar.
Yep, basically. Yep, pretty much. And that is to this day still I have a hard time stomaching anything CNW to this day.
Really? You come down
Absolutely.
in my basement and you're so civil.
I know because we're friends, and I was always, I was always taught that I should be nice about stuff,
Okay.
But in all seriousness, that's exactly it. There's Chicago Northwestern has a ton of really cool things. They did a lot of stuff very similar to the way the Milwaukee Road was, and a lot of similar areas. Yeah, like in southwestern Minnesota, like out of Augusta, was it Augusta? Austin, Minnesota. Sorry, out of Austin,
Okay.
Minnesota. They went to the west. The Milwaukee Road did. They had really cool. That's where the SDL 39 started, and you had the rebuilt Alcos and stuff like that. And then the Northwestern in that same area, didn't they have like the Alco line? Wasn't that down in that area? So I mean, they had really similar,
Yeah.
and they paralleled. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard to go north and south in Minnesota. So I mean, almost everything goes east west. If anybody ever takes a look at the map of Minnesota, unless you're along the Mississippi, there's almost nothing that goes north and south. Everything goes east west.
Yep,
So
right.
So a lot of competition, competitors, and stuff like that. And as time went on, I just never learned how to appreciate the Chicago Northwestern. Still to this day, I just don't care for it. That's just my personal opinion. I'm a Milwaukee Road guy to the core,
Okay.
but
But
I also like the ELS, the Escanaba Lake Superior, and I also like the Green Bay and Western, and I also like, a certain line of the Sioux line.
okay.
It's actually, and so there's, but then I also like parts of the Rock Island, the Missouri Pacific. There's railroads out east that I think are neat. There's railroads out west that I think are neat. But everything always funnels back to the Milwaukee Road. I mean, it's just those are kind of cool caveats, if that's a proper way to say that, or little detours.
Sure.
So for me, it's all because of a family connection to the railroad.
Okay. So that's the first thing, right?
That's
so
the first thing. Yeah.
the first thing is you have to have a connection to the railroad.
I grew up with all these guys. I grew up with guys that I ended up being their engineer for.
Really?
Oh yeah, there were guys that were still in the heyday of their career, in the later years of their career, like the last 1 or 2 years. And when I became an engineer, I was their engineer when they were getting ready to retire from being a conductor and be done railroading. And they knew me when I was 5 years old.
Wow. So your dad would take you down to basically take you to work.
Well, yeah, sort of. Sometimes. I'll never forget the day that this happened. I was about 1975, and this was what made me fall in love with trains also, not just the Milwaukee Road, but fall in love with trains. That was a long time ago. Yes, I'm old.
It's not that old.
Yeah, I'm old. But when I was about 5 years old, my dad needed to go down and do something at the depot, and I'm not sure what that was. He had to go into the depot and do something. And he says, "Hey, do you want to come along?" I said, "Sure." I said, whatever. I thought that would be kind of cool. I'm going down to see the trains. And when we got out, the train from Milwaukee, and at the time I couldn't, nice shirt. At the time I couldn't tell you what it was. It was probably 244 or one of those like that came into town. Never saw the power or nothing. And he says, "Come here once." And I said, "What?" And he takes me up by the boxcar and he says, "Here," he's like pointing out, he goes, "Here's what this does. Here's what this does." And all of a sudden they cut away from the train and the air dumped and it went, psh.
Yeah.
And I jumped back and I looked at my dad and I got he says, I got a huge smile on my face and said, "Make him do it again. That was cool. Make him do it again." Yeah. And he goes, "No, we can't do that." And ever since that moment, I've been in love with the Milwaukee Road. And I have, especially in and around Green Bay, and the little forgotten portion of the railroad. But it's for me, I have very strong ties to the railroad itself through family and coworkers and all that kind of stuff, Yeah. So
you've, I mean, basically, since you were a kid, you've been exposed to the Milwaukee Road ever since, what was it, 85? So
basically 75, 74, 75. Yeah.
So 75 to 85, right? Is when
for
they
10 years
closed up, right? For 10 years, you've just been constantly getting exposed to the Milwaukee Road, and it kind of, it sunk in, and I have a similar story, and I'm going to share mine.
Yep.
I'm just going to make it all about me.
Yeah.
So you guys take a quick break here. But I do have some pictures that I wanted to share. So yeah.
Good idea. I can drum up some pictures.
So I'm gonna this is how Andy got started, or why he loves the Chicago Northwestern so much, right? So Tom Klimanski said you got to have a personal connection to the railroad, right? And so this picture here is where this is West Rosendale, Wisconsin. That's right. There's a West Rosendale, and here's the Chicago Northwestern Marsh Line right here on the left. And then if you see the big brick building here, this was called the Cabbage House. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you look to the right of that building, you'll see a garage and a house, and that's my house. That's where I grew up as a little kid.
That little the tan little or beige colored house, or the gray little building.
Yep. Yeah. So the little building over there is right here. That's the garage, and then we had a single story ranch right here, out in the country. Right. So this is where I grew up, and this was the train that I saw every day, come through. This is where that picture was taken from. So basically standing where the train was in the picture prior. So this is the train headed westbound. So it's just a classic GP7 with a short load of, box cars and a couple of covered hoppers and that type of stuff. This was my exposure every day from the age of, let's see, 2 or 3, maybe 4. When I started chasing the trains down the property line, all the way till I think they stopped in 86. So I got about 2-3 years, but these were my first memories. Here's another picture of
that's
a GP7.
cool.
Yeah, in the wintertime, of a Jeep 7, and then one of those Katie rebuilds that's with it there as a trailing unit. So this was what I started with. And then my grandma and grandpa, they lived right across the street from would have been the Ripon depot. So this is when I went to grandma and grandpa's, this is what I saw, these types of pictures of Jeep 7s and covered hoppers. This was just up the street from my grandma and grandpa in Ripon. So again, that exposure of I guess being near to trains. And then this was the depot right here. So my grandma and grandpa lived behind those trees. So I would sit in my grandma and grandpa's kitchen eating macaroni and cheese and watching Jeep 7s hang out in front of the depot.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah. So this was my first, I guess, exposure to the railroad. And this is a one that I have a very deep connection to myself. So it's interesting, that we don't, I think Heath said, hey, so how come we don't model either of those, but we might get to that in a little bit. So, but again, so those are our two favorite, I guess, railroads. And it's funny too, because when you talk about it, Mike, the Milwaukee Road also came into Ripon.
Yeah.
But I never saw it. So I only saw the Northwestern, and the Milwaukee Road was there, but they were never in town when I was there running. So
yeah, and that's the thing is, I didn't know the Milwaukee Road went anywhere other than in and around Green Bay. I didn't know about the rest of it. I knew that they went down to Milwaukee. That's all I knew out of Green Bay. And then I also knew that they went north, and where, I don't know. I didn't know. I was a kid. I was 7 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old. I never realized the scope of the railroad until, in all honesty, until I got mid to late teens.
Really?
Oh yeah. I never, when I got my driver's license in 1986, the railroad had already been gone.
Yep.
But I never, ever one time thought about, I should go take some pictures of this stuff.
Yeah.
Not once did that even come across my mind as to do something. And I regret it. I regret it completely. I mean, it's the looking back syndrome, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
Look back and think about, well, what woulda, coulda, shoulda, right?
Right.
But for me, my brain is, and I know I'm going to get a lot of people are going to say stuff, but my brain is wired a little differently than a lot of people, like Luke Lemons. Honest to God, Luke Lemons. Luke is able to focus on this one thing, and that's it. That's all his mind is focused on. And he thinks other things are cool, but it never makes him waver one way or the other. And for me, I look at something, I'm like, I got to go down that rabbit hole. Well, I'm going to come back, and there's something else. I'm going to go down this way now. Well, I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
And that has affected my modeling. Like, seriously.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, well, I'm just saying, like, I'd probably have accomplished a lot more had I been able to stay more focused.
Okay.
And, and just say, well, this is when I want to go. This is what I want to do. I want to be able to model this, but boy, this is cool and that's cool. And, and that's probably what led me down the freelance road, is because I think there's too much neat stuff all over, but then I keep on bouncing eras. I have a problem.
I know you have a hobby.
I need a 12-step program. That's what I need.
All right. Hi, Mike.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. I have a model railroad problem.
Yep, everyone now. Hi, Mike.
Hi,
okay.
Mike.
But no. So let's take this one step further. So
sure.
we were back in. You're talking about, okay, got my driver's license, right? And here we go. Yep. And you didn't realize the scope of the railroad. So no. when you started to find out about the Milwaukee Road, and how there was more than just the little area of it being in Green Bay. Did that change your mind, or did that actually make you love it more?
Well, it made me love it a hell of a lot more because
Okay.
I thought, oh, there's cool. Because now I started to get the research bug. You know what I mean? Where I'm like,
Okay.
ooh,
Yeah.
well, I wonder if this ever happened. I don't remember ever seeing this, but I wasn't down there every day. I don't know what they. So I started going to train shows, and everything I looked for was Green Bay or like that line between Milwaukee and Green Bay or Milwaukee and Ontonagon. Everything I looked for was for that, and that alone. Books, paraphernalia,
Yeah.
any papers. I mean, I found a lot of information out. Some is really old, some is right in my wheelhouse, and it's it still makes it has still been difficult to actually sit down and say, this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it sounds very, very weird probably, but I want to share a photo with you if I can, please.
Yeah. By all means.
All
That's
right,
why we're here.
let's see if we can do this. I'm going to share screen. Winder. All right. See that picture right there?
Yeah. Can you zoom in on it a little bit? There you go. That looks nice. That looks real nice.
This was the very first railfan photo I ever took in my entire life.
Wow.
The very, very first one. I was about 14 years old, maybe.
Okay.
Right in there. It's 1984-ish.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, who is it that just announced the GP40s? Scale trains.
Yeah.
2040 is one of the numbers that they're doing, except for they're doing it without the block lettering.
Yeah, right.
So, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. I digress. They'll get around to it. I know they'll do it, but anyway, yeah, this photo here is I'm really proud of. This was taken with a 110 camera. Remember little 110 disposable camera things, the real long, narrow film.
The long, narrow ones that come with a flash cube on it.
It didn't have the flash. Mine didn't have a flash cube, but it was a long, narrow film cartridge that you popped in and popped out, and that's what this was taken with. And I've always wanted to recreate this scene. It's just the same day I took this picture.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting, kind of neat. I mean, they're running, cabooses. This is awesome.
Yeah, right.
I'm sitting there watching this, thinking these are never going to go away. Well, I guess I was wrong there. And then this is the opposite. I walked across because my dad said I could, and this was yes, it's blurry. I know. I was 14 and I had a 110 camera.
And you needed the money.
Yeah, and I needed the money, right? But the Milwaukee always ran a pair of GP 38-2s or 3 GP40s was what came up to Green Bay in the late 80s or mid 80s, like 84, 85-ish. That's typically what you saw. And so I've always wanted to. I couldn't tell you what the other 2 GP40s were. I didn't take a picture of it from that side for whatever reason. Probably because this is possibly some of the last pictures I had on the roll of film. But it really, this is something I want to model.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter what scale I'm building it in. I want to model this pair of power, the 351 and the 362. I want this. So it's and then I want the 2040 on also. So this is the stuff that inspired me to become and stay a Milwaukee Road fan. And now I'm kind of in it way deep.
Yeah. So Humanity Junction has asked this question. You love, we're into the Milwaukee Road, and you model the Farland Terminal. Now we don't have to answer just yet because I have a process here, and we're going to get there eventually.
Okay.
And then, but yes, we are paying attention to the chat. Anthony Borden, we got your question as well about how do you pick a railroad and not get bored with it, right? So there's going to be a few things. So just be patient with us, and we'll get to the end here. So, so the other key. So then, what as you started to dive deeper, were there certain elements like, so for example, the Milwaukee Road it was at the time was huge, right? It went from
Right.
Chicago all the way to Seattle.
And all the way to, well, when I first started in 74, yeah, absolutely. It went all the way out to Tacoma and that area.
Yeah.
Then it went out to Kansas City, down
Right.
to Chicago. It went down to Louisville,
Yeah.
So I mean, it went all over the place. I mean, it was 10 or 11,000 mile system. It was the largest railroad to disappear from the face of the United States. The largest railroad to disappear.
Yeah.
The Rock Island was number 2.
So let me ask you this: did you love all of it?
No, I couldn't stand the Pacific Extension.
You couldn't stand the Pacific Extension.
I now appreciate the beauty of it.
Okay.
But still can't stand the thought of even. I want to go out there and see it because of how beautiful it is, and to experience what once was. But for the most part, no, the Pacific Extension for me was never anything. I was really mired right in this area.
Roger Moses, blasphemy.
Hey,
no, that's okay. It's okay. So
it's the way it is. It's all. If you talk to Milwaukee Road people, that's all they ever remember is the Pacific Extension.
So
that's all they talk about.
so Humanity Junction says. So what is the Pacific Extension? So let's add a little clarity for the folks that don't know what that was for the Milwaukee Road.
Oh God, I don't have the years, but at one point, way early, I want to say late 1800s, early 1900s, the Milwaukee Road decided to expand after the Great Northern and Northern Pacific had already gone to the west. The Milwaukee Road started their expansion to the west, and that was considered the Pacific Extension, and it west from, well, when it disappeared in 1980, it was from Miles City, Montana, west.
Okay.
All the way through, like, they had Avery, Idaho, and a bunch of the towns. They escaped my name. Tacoma, or
basically everything from western Montana to the Pacific Ocean.
To the Pacific Ocean, basically. Well, like east central Montana to the Pacific Ocean was the extension, and it was gorgeous. There are things that out there that are civil engineering, impossibilities that these people came up with. These engineers on the Milwaukee Road came up with a way to get either around, through, or over mountains that the other railroads just didn't want to deal with, and they did it. And it created one of the most picturesque, most beautiful railroad lines to have ever disappeared from the face of the earth. The Snoqualmie Pass is absolutely phenomenal. I think that's out in eastern Washington or east central Washington, in that area. And it's just, it's the largest abandoned line in the United States. There are a few areas and a few pockets of the former Pacific Extension that are still operated, I believe, by BNSF now, but they are and a couple of short lines, but are St. Mary's River Railroad is one of them. That's out in Idaho, and it's just, they're it's a shame. It was faster and more straight than the Great Northern and the Northern Pacific's Railroad. It was, but due to money and politics and everything all of us modelers hate about railroading, it ended up being, a victim, and it was making money at the end. It was profitable. Like the last 3 years, they were making profit, and they shut it down. But they were having a derailment a day out there. I mean, on the main line. I mean, it was just,
deferred maintenance.
It's deferred maintenance. I mean, it was horrible. It was terrible.
So okay, so you didn't like that part of the Milwaukee Road. So the part that you did like, though, was the Midwest part, or is it just specifically Green Bay?
Specifically the area in and around north and south of Green Bay, because they were two different railroads, completely different railroads. South of Green Bay, you had a lot of paper mills and you had a lot of industries, several industries, right? North of Green Bay was more rural, but you had timber that fed the Green Bay paper mills. Right. And then you also had the ore trains. You had ore, and you had a paper mill up there in Noggin, and you had paper mills over in Marinette. You had, had all these. They had one branch line that went from a town called Crivets, Wisconsin, over towards Marinette, and that line had a job that went on it every single day. And the Marinette, I love hanging around the ELS on the Marinette because it's almost like taking a step back in time. And then south of Green Bay was agricultural. You had co-ops, you had feed mills, you had warehousing, and it was just completely different world south of Green Bay than it was north of Green Bay.
So you were kind of smack dab in the middle of this, I guess you could say, operations goodness, right?
Yeah.
So you had everything. You had all the major commodities ticked off. Right. So you got pulp, wood, you got paper, you got ore. That's right, split rock, ore.
Yep, red dirt, lots of it.
Lots of red dirt. And then you also had the agricultural piece, so the covered hoppers, the tank cars, box cars, so now we're starting to get a picture, right? So we looked at our favorite railroad, the Milwaukee Road, and we said, do we like all of it? Hell no. We only like this part. And why do we like this little part? Right? It's the
scope is narrowed already.
Yeah. So now you can start to see, and this kind of goes to Anthony's question here. So how do you pick a railroad that you're not bored with, right? You start to get into this, kind of squish things down into the scope, this I guess smaller piece of the railroad.
Did I mention the pig trains?
No, you didn't even mention the pig trains.
Yeah, there were sprint trains that actually transferred into the Milwaukee. I believe they transferred to the Sioux line, and then also transferred into the Wisconsin Central. And they were there was a train, and if I remember right, it was 218 and 219. Those on the WC, they were always 218, 219 pig train, Green Bay down to Chicago. That's what it was. On the Sioux line, same thing. You had 218, 219. Matter of fact, I just watched a video about Rondout where they talked about in like 1986, 87, about 218 and 219 going through Rondout in each direction on the way to and from Green Bay. It was right on this video. The Milwaukee Road had started sprint train service in Green Bay. Not
plan that.
The sprint trains
line modelers, like we could have planned that.
Yep, a single when they were on the double main line, there was a single SD40-2 and 10 or 15 cars, and boom, and they left now, and they were more on time than passenger service was. Like they would have rivaled Hiawatha service back in the 50s and 60s.
Wow.
It would have I mean, that is how much. I mean, they did not mess around. When they left Chicago, they left. When they got to Milwaukee, it was, you're gone, period. You're behind, get there. And it was just amazing to watch. And the trailers were they were never all the same. There was always a bunch of stuff. If I remember right, the Milwaukee Road Sprint trains were some of the first trains in the United States to go without cabooses.
Really?
I believe so. I've got some photos in a book, and I believe they mentioned that. And so it was just another aspect, oh, cool. And then it's I have a very big passion for it. I really honestly do. And I feel really bad, and I feel as if I've done myself a disservice by straying down all these different roads. But I don't want to be that guy that's just known for one thing. You know what I mean?
Sure. No,
So, no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I guess that I was saying, so like you, from the way it sounds, like you have all of this, I guess, operational interest with the different types of trains. Then there's the equipment. Nothing, I mean, like you're kind of in the model rail. Like, let's say I like to collect a bunch of stuff. Like, you've kind of picked like the perfect spot to say, well, I'm modeling the Milwaukee Road, and I need this equipment. So I got to have ore trains, and I got to have piggybacks, and then I got to have, this, and so then all of a sudden you get a case of the gotta have it's, right?
Yep.
And so now we've now exploded the scope.
Well, and it gets better.
Yeah. So was this all of this operational goodness, and this, I guess the other thing was the equipment diversity. Was this all in a manner of a few years? Was it spread across a certain era? Like, because some of the modelers, so we're starting to focus in. Okay, so we got the location,
Right.
we got the kind of the equipment. Was there a specific era that, like a timeline that could even box it in further?
Passenger service ended in 1968.
Passenger service.
The last Copper Country Limited. The last Copper Country Limited ran in March. I believe it was March 11th of 1968. That was the last Copper Country Limited. So there were ski trains, quote unquote ski trains, that would go up north. And there's one. The last one is actually very infamous. The one that there's a lot of stories out there about it, and photos of a U-25B on the front of this ginormous passenger train, and that was because the thing froze completely. It was so cold out. The steam generators, the cars froze. That's no joke.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was no joke. But it was a nightmare for the Milwaukee Road. But then after that, they didn't run them anymore. I think they may have run one, and that was it. But the thing is like when you talk about equipment, the line was a test bed for the Milwaukee Road.
Really?
The Milwaukee Road, when they first got their SD40-2s, they ran them to Green Bay and then north of Green Bay because of the grades that are up here. They tested them up here before releasing them out onto their main line to make sure that they could work the kinks out. And there's many photos of brand spanking right off the showroom floor SD40-2s in Green Bay and north of Green Bay. Just out there doing their thing. Milwaukee Road, the Milwaukee Engine House in Green Bay was a rebuild location for F7s and GP9s.
Oh, right.
So the GP9s and F7s were a staple in Green Bay. They were all over the place, especially north, going on ore trains. You would be nothing to see an ABBA set with a GP9 going up on the ore train and coming back. Fairbanks Morris switch engines. It was one of the last holdouts for them.
That's right. Yeah.
I actually have an S scale Fairbanks Morris switcher that I plan on building in Milwaukee Road. So yeah, and then later, but then when they wanted to do their testing for their slug sets, the slug sets came to Green Bay. So the SE1 was in Green Bay. The SE2 has been in Green Bay. Those slug sets were up here. The only engine that there is no evidence of ever being up here, EMD wise, are the SDL 39s. There's a rumor that one of them made it up here because they were doing some repairs on it and they wanted it to come up. But and a buddy of mine that I used to work with on the Green Bay and Western, Danny Lookie, swears he never got a picture of it, but he swears it was there. Scouts honor, and I believe Danny. Danny's one of these no BS guys. But he says it was only the one time he ever saw it, and that was it. But SD10s, GP20s, the 35s came up here, 38-2s, 40s. I mean, FP45s, SD45, SD40-2s. If during the late 70s, if there was an engine the Milwaukee had on the roster, it came to Green Bay at one point.
GE units too, right? GEs,
U23Bs would be mixed. A GP38-2 and a U23B would be mixed in the same consist. I actually have photos of these things together. So it's you're right. It was like the perfect area to be able to model everything. And maybe that's part of the problem, because there was so much variety that there was nothing to pinpoint. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
So let me get this straight. So now because of the diversity of the equipment, made it hard for you to model this.
I could easily model 1984 and 1985.
Okay.
And at the same time model 1977 and 1981. And use the same equipment.
Yeah.
But then after 1980, the line north got sold to the ELS, Escanaba Lake Superior.
Right.
And things changed. So my vision of the Milwaukee Road disappeared. But yet when I got my driver's license, the Milwaukee had already gone away. It was Sioux Line, Lake States. And when I wanted to start taking pictures, the ELS was there.
Sure.
So I started falling in love with the ELS. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's...
Modeler brings up a really good point here. And this is not trying to, poke holes at your process here or anything like that, Mike.
Yeah.
But, it says with diversity like that, he says you have to start with a base variety of power and then expand it over time. You can't do that at the very beginning. So it's true, right? You can't eat the elephant all in one bite. And so we got some really good questions coming in here,
good.
Mike. So I want to field a couple of them, because I think this is a good breather point for us. Yep. I think we've really unpacked something here, right? So this may start to, Split Rock has a question. So how much interchange was happening in Green Bay?
A lot. The Chicago Northwestern, actually, we had I say it like I was working there. Matter of fact, I would have been working there had they been around in 1988 yet. I would have hired out. But the Chicago Northwestern had an interchange at Oakland Yard in the Milwaukee Road Yard. They had an interchange behind the depot. And then the Green Bay and Western out by Huron Road, which is, believe it or not, I just went past it today because I work on my former Green Bay and Western line that I hired out on. And we have an area called, it's a little siding, and it's called the Milwaukee Interchange. And that's because that's exactly what it was. And so that's about a half a mile or so away from the yard. And so they would go out and interchange with the Green Bay and Western, and the Chicago Northwestern would come in, I believe, twice a day.
Yeah.
They'd go out to the GBW, I believe, twice a day. So there was a lot. And then in 1980, the ELS would make a loop. They would make a whole loop around and tie up in the Oakland Avenue yard, and they would come in. They would come in onto the Chicago Northwestern at Duck Creek, or at, just north of Duck Creek, on the Ore Sub. Come into the Green Bay yard, set out and pick up there. Set out and pick up at the Green Bay and Western at McDonald's in the McDonald yard, which is right next to the C&W yard. Go through town, come into the Milwaukee Road yard, through the transfer, cut off, and go and put their power away up at 12th Avenue, and just let it sit up at the top end. And then the Milwaukee Road would come in and do their thing and shuffle things about, and then they would go reverse route back the opposite direction.
So look at this. This is a fantastic comment here by Thomas Austin. He says, diversity can and has created paralysis by analysis and creates Mike's dilemma of what do I model? And his knowledge of Milwaukee makes this obvious.
Yeah.
Is
that a thank you?
I think so. I absolutely think it's a thank you. And I'll take that completely out of context, Thomas, just to keep the good times rolling here. But that's a really good point. Like, you just basically went into very discrete operational detail about, what's going on in Green Bay, the different railroads that are there. And Split Rock had a comment earlier about, well, why don't you just model Green Bay, right?
Impossible to do.
There you go, right? So, but again, so now we're starting to, there's another problem that's starting to, kind of rear its ugly head. So we do all of this beautiful research. We go through and we read the books and all that. And we find out that we love all of these features that the Milwaukee Road has. We love the equipment. We love the diversity. We love the color. We love orange.
Orange and black, baby.
Orange and black, baby. Boy, that's tough to beat. And then the scenery, right? You got the North Woods of Wisconsin, the rolling hills, or the North Woods of Upper Michigan, with the hard scrabble landscape like you see behind me here. Then you got some farm fields and stuff. So now you're starting to see, okay, kind of all honing in, but it's because maybe you have too much knowledge about it.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, we go down and spot a place called State Street, right? Mm-hmm. It's on the former Milwaukee Roads, like off of the yard at Broadway in Green Bay. There was a little connection track that went off to the side, and at one time, the Milwaukee Road and the Chicago Northwestern kind of shared some trackage in there, and it's along a road named State Street. And there was a coal plant, a charcoal plant. There was a what the heck is that called? There was a small little foundry, a stamp mill foundry type of thing. There was a cement plant, warehousing. There was an oil dealer down there. There was all this stuff, right? In a straight line that would make a beautiful shelf layout. And the other day we're spotting up State Lakes, and my conductor even says, "You all right over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just thinking." Never mind. I'm just thinking. And all I kept on thinking of is, okay, the Northwestern came in behind Cropsey's bar and connected here. And I'm sitting here going, okay, then they paralleled. And then there was a crossover right here. And then I'm like, oh, I should talk to my buddy Brian and see if he's still got the maps for this. Oh, better yet, I could go down to the library and go and see if they've got the fire maps for this area and see. And then I started going, what are you going to do this in? How are you going to do this? What are you going to do that for? Stop thinking, just say it's cool and move on. And that's the thing, right? It was once a day, a handful of cars, great little shelf layout, would be a really cool little layout. I should map it out and draw it up one of these days as a layout and see exactly what it would look like. But it's just one of those things where it wouldn't scratch the itch enough. Does that make any sense?
So this is a really interesting comment here by Boomer. Says loads of passion with no committed plan equals fail every time. You have to let go of 95% of the prototype railroad if you want to be content with the model railroad.
Yeah.
That's fairly
That's
profound.
That's very deep. Holy cow.
But I mean, but
And
then
very true. 100%.
and Thomas Austin, says that, and Tom Holly's got a really good point here. Sometimes knowing too much about a railroad can hinder attempts to model it.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, it's, I could take a look at the Milwaukee Road and I can pick it apart and I can see exactly where the failures were and everything else like that, right? I can see how the reasoning behind why they stopped going along the alley tracks in Green Bay and instead decided to go in through the Chicago is because of a Port Plaza Mall project. Believe it or not, there was a Jesus God, don't even get me going on it. Yeah, dump. But I mean, cried out loud.
Yeah,
remember Port Plaza Mall?
Center.
It was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, and then it lasted all 8 years, and then they bulldozed it.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where they bulldozed half of the downtown of Green Bay, a lot of historic buildings and areas, in order to build a mall. And they thought they were doing something, but anyway, it's gone. The parking ramp's still there, but the rest of it's all gone. But and along with it came the Milwaukee Road's alley tracks, which were pretty iconic in the area. I mean, they were, and I understand exactly why they had to get rid of that. They probably would have over time anyway. I mean, they wouldn't be around today anyway. But, I mean, Boomer's right. Picking a segment and saying this is what I'm going to do and focusing on that really is what needs to be done, and put the blinders on and block out the rest.
Okay.
Am I paraphrasing that well enough?
I think so.
Or did I miss the mark on that?
No, I don't think you're missing the mark. I mean, there's a little interpretation that you can be had there, but I think you're kind of getting to it. But it's just there's just a lot of it's what's dry. So it's one of the reasons why I haven't modeled the marsh line to any extent yet either. Right? It's what I hope to do at some point in time, but just because of all the knowledge that I have about it now, I'm really always worried or concerned that I'm not going to do it justice, right?
Bingo.
And for me, like that's the thing that I'm concerned about, and so it's tough, because I like my passion project certainly is the marsh line, and my dad worked at various industries on the line. I have this connection to it. I love the operation of it, but it's the layout of my basement in this old house doesn't lend me to whatever, right? I'll make excuses until the cows come home. But I think the other part that late night model railroad brought up earlier was, so we got into these physical elements pretty quickly, right? The prototype, the era, but then I think it kind of ties into some of the stuff that Boomer's been teaching about, the creating artwork, or as Late Night Model Railroad says, what's the story that you want to tell with your railroad?
Right.
And I think that's the thing that, for at least on my end of things with the marsh line, I haven't been able to figure out yet. So that's why I'm building the thing that I'm building behind me. But I'm just curious, Mike, like the railroad that you're building today,
By
the
Farland
Farland,
Terminal.
yeah, the Farland terminal. What's the, like, are there any parallels that you could draw to the Milwaukee Road?
It's kind of funny that you say that or ask that. Well, one there again, I've bounced back and forth about where I've wanted the Farland terminal to be located.
Okay.
I've had everything from my major freelance railroad, the Wisconsin Midwestern. I'm like, oh, it's just going to be part of that, and then the Wisconsin Midwestern Power and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, well, maybe I'll take it and it'll be off of the Green Bay and Western over by the Anape and Western, and then I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. I have to kick that idea around, and I'm like, oh. And then I keep on going to, yeah, but if I do it off of the Milwaukee Road, I can model Milwaukee Road Power the way I want and just use it as my 92-day engines. Like they're leasing them. My engine goes to Green Bay to be inspected for its 92-day inspection, and in return, I get a Milwaukee Road SW1200 or a Milwaukee Road GP9 or whatever else, or a Fairbanks Morris switcher or something like that. And so, as of right now, that's the case. My interchange is with the Milwaukee Road. Next, I got to figure out when I want that to be, and I've got it right now where I model 92 to 93 or something like that. I can't, believe it or not, this is going to sound really bad, and I don't care. This is one of those things where I just don't care what people think anymore about this. I have such an affinity and a passion for the time of the time when that I worked for Green Bay and Western in 92 and 93 is because that's why I try to model that specific era right now. But I really, 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 my heart is more with the early 80s, like right before the Milwaukee Road standardized their roster. So kind of like Luke Lemons, again, another parallel to Luke. Luke models 1979, the specific time of 1979, which I think is August or something like that, because the F units were still around, the U-boats were still around, everything the Sioux had was still around. And it was shortly after that time frame that they standardized and a lot of the stuff went away. And so I kind of feel like that I want to be able to have that variety, but I want to be able to model the equipment rather than the line, if that makes any sense.
Yes. So you want the actor, you want to draw focus to the actors,
yes,
and not the stage.
Yeah, not the stage.
Because and let me just try and put words into your mouth here.
Absolutely.
So because of the intimate knowledge that you have of the railroad, you feel that you would rather not model those, I guess, layout design elements or those elements, so to speak, but rather just model the equipment from that time frame in some sort of fictional setting.
Yes.
Because you feel you couldn't do it justice.
I know I can't do it justice. I tried mapping it out in HO scale. It just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do the portion of the line that I wanted. And it was, be honest with you, it sounds a lot better than what it actually is. Unless you were modeling right in and around the Green Bay area with the locals and stuff like that, the main line was boring. There was like towards the early 80s, there was one train in each direction. That was it.
Yeah, right.
And they did way work along the way. Okay.
Oh, so they did all the.
They switched. They set out and picked up in Plymouth. They set out and picked up in Hilbert, and then there was a local out of Menasha that came to Hilbert, and went back. There was a Plymouth Patrol that worked out of Plymouth that went south and came back. So you're either modeling, and that was that part of the line. Once you got north of Hilbert, you had a lot. You had the jobs in Green Bay, and then you had a job in Crivets, and then a job up in Channing, Michigan. A couple of jobs up there. There weren't a ton of trains. You had one that went north of Green Bay and came back. You had one that went, or two that went south of Green Bay and came back. The pig trains were in the mid 80s. That was, all that stuff. It's the paper mill job. All of that changed because they were using other people's railroads.
Let me ask you this. If you had, and we're going to play the fun little game here of, if you
unlimited
had,
resource
if you had an airplane hangar and 10 mics, they cloned you, right? 10 of you.
God help the world if that ever happened.
Yeah, let's just say we keep the 9 of them in the airplane hangar just to work on the railroad.
Okay,
we're going to set some rules here. Would you model that line then if you had the space and the resources to do it?
Absolutely.
Or would you still okay?
And I would do it if I had an unlimited space. I would model the length of that line.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely do that. And it would be a lot of nothing. There'd be a lot of length of run. There'd be a lot of stuff, but I would definitely model that line. And I'd go back to HO scale to do it.
Sure.
There's no way I would try to model it. And that's another thing. I made the change to go to S scale. And that's kind of limited my modeling abilities of the line too. So I'm like kind of, and that's my own personal preference and stuff like that. But it's just, it's one of those things where, like for any of you guys out there that have the affliction, so to speak, like I do, where you're in love with a railroad.
You're not alone, Mike. You're not alone.
But where you have
sentiment.
You have a love affair with a railroad. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter why you love that railroad. But yet you find yourself struggling to find a way to model it properly. There's no answer as to how to correct that. There is none, because it all lays into your own personal psyche as to whether or not you feel you can go and get it taken care of. And if you can't, that's where you might find something else to model. And that's what I did with my Farland terminal. I had to do something. I wanted to model something, but I wanted. If I wasn't so deep into what I'm doing with the Farland terminal right now, I would tear the whole damn thing right down, start over, and I would model a Milwaukee Road line and make it period point blank Milwaukee Road. I would do that tomorrow, but then I'd be kicking myself because I've got a lot of cool things that I've done on my Farland terminal that I want to see through.
Yeah.
And so I'd feel really bad. But yeah. I mean,
David Winther, right? This is one of the things that I fall into, because nobody wants to hear you did that wrong, or that's not how it looked, right?
Yeah, and I'm actually thought about, and I was at an operating session at Luke's. There's stinking Luke again, crying out loud.
Yeah,
love that guy like a brother. He's coming up. We're gonna get to that here in a second too, but we were over at his house, and I was talking to another friend of mine, Chris Holschbach, about the fact that Tavel Shack is still open. Or it's still there, the shack at Tavel. And where Tavel is where the Chicago Northwestern's double main coming into Green Bay. And yes, it was a double main line for a very short segment for like 2 miles. It was double main into the city of Green Bay. And the Milwaukee Road crossed right there. And there was the Chicago Northwestern had an operator in this shanty and it's not a big shanty, but Mike Paulsgrove from Sioux Parts actually 3D prints that building, and I actually asked him to 3D print one in S scale for me. And now I'm going to try to see if I can't work with my bosses, so to speak, to get permission to get into the shack to take measurements because I want to do the interior.
Sure.
I don't see where that's going to be a problem for them, but that's my plan. And I've kind of thought, wouldn't it be kind of neat to just do a diorama of Tavel? Just the diamond area of Tavel with the shanty, and see how that would scratch the itch, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, we like I watch. I'm an avid guy, and thanks to Andy because he's told me about this guy 1,000 times, and I finally listened to him. And I started watching this guy. He's a military modeler. He's called Night Shift.
Uncle Night Shift.
Uncle Night Shift. I'll
my
tell you
friends.
what. My friends.
My friends.
He's from the Czech Republic, I believe, right? The yeah. And so he does a lot of these really, really awesome dioramas out of styrofoam and stuff like that. And every time I watch one of his shows, I'm like, there's no way that his end result is like phenomenal. I'm like, okay, but he makes it in such a way that you can go and do it yourself. He's very, very, you can do this type of guy. And so, and I've thought about doing that with the Tavel Shack, and I was going to use it on my Farland terminal to use it as a Farland terminal's yard office. But then I started thinking, I really would like to incorporate this into a diorama rather than have it do that, and then just have it on a shelf and then start creating the Milwaukee Road story that I grew up knowing in diorama form rather than in layout form. Any sense to that at all?
Boy, that makes a hell of a lot of sense to me.
I mean, there's places like another place would be like up at Randville. Randville, there was a signal at just outside of Randville for the spring switch that went down to the mine.
Right.
And it was, I can always remember somewhere I think I have a photo of it, but I vividly remember that thing being tilted on an angle and it still worked, but it was tilted on this angle and it just, what the heck? Why is my printer thing coming up? Oh,
can't know. You must be printing something.
Never mind. So
dimensions for the Tavel Shack.
Yeah. Make Tavel into a Fremo. I've thought about that, but it would have to be configured a certain way. But and then I'd have to model the C&W side of it. And then, this is enough C&W talk for me. I love you, Andy, but honestly, whatever. In all seriousness, it's just one of those things where I see Boomer talk about these postage stamp vignettes on his layout, and I keep on thinking about that and going back, and I keep wondering, hey, is that a better way of modeling a line that I really don't know how to do justice, but do small little segments, like maybe a 1 foot by 1 foot little segment of that, and just do that to a point where when you looked at it and looked at a photo, you're like, I remember what that looks like. I remember that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're right. Maybes and some days I got a ton of maybes in some days, but I mean, I'm sure we all do, but there also is a whole lot of other things that need to get done, but not just model railroad wise. But
Yeah.
it's, I mean, what do you think of that for like your marsh line? Is that like
No.
you've done some modules already, like you did El Dorado?
Yeah. Yep, I did El Dorado, and it it was a Fremo module that I did, an 8-foot Fremo module, and it was fantastic. It was fun because I got to scratch that itch, and I think the next part of the marsh line that I'm going to be doing is, let me see if I can pull this up here, but this is what I'll be doing next. So I'm just going to make a little diorama of the cabbage house scene in my mom and dad's house.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that idea.
And it's simple. It doesn't, it's just, this brick warehouse, right? Which is still there to this day. So I got a ton of photos of it.
Yeah.
And a straight piece of code 55 track. That's it.
Yeah.
And a little grade crossing, and it's pretty much the next piece that I'm gonna model. And this brickwork's gonna be fun to do, but try it, and maybe I'll do great, maybe I won't, but I am gonna give it a try. So, and then that way I could, if I ever do build the marsh line as a layout, I have the building already made, and I can go from there. So I think I'm definitely going to give that a try. Again, could be a Fremo option as well, just to, to do that. But I think it's something that I'm going to try and do.
It's, why not?
Yeah.
Why not just do it? Just, I've seen a lot of people, Mike, do it.
Yeah. Just,
well, here's what it would end up looking like. Here's
JFDI.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Tavel Shack that's still there. It's kind of all weeded in, but look at the signals that I could hook up. Look at the Northwestern train order board.
I know it.
This right here is the distance signal for the drawbridge on the Milwaukee Road. This is a light for a switch.
Yeah.
For the switch light. This is a gate that was actually this is a timetable gate that was supposed to be
not
left.
a smash board?
Nope, it is a timetable gate. If the Milwaukee Road was switching, they had to get permission from the guy in the Tavel Shack to line the gate against the C&W. Then once the Northwestern train called, they had to clear and line the gate back.
Yeah.
Let the train go and come back. So this gate right here, and and it obviously you can see the two red lights.
Yeah.
What's that?
Look at that Roger Moses cool short mass signal there.
Right here. Yeah.
Shorty signal.
And
that's really cool.
Back in the day, here's another little picture of it with a little bit more, but look at those beautiful F's, eh?
Yeah, those are some real Jim dandies.
Yeah, but back in the day, that used to have here's some different little angle. This is the guy, one of the operators, I believe, for the C&W.
He looks like a nice guy.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. What is that? Right here.
It's a switch stand.
No, I'm looking at that. I never noticed that before. Anyway, they at one time there were actually gate arms on the Milwaukee Road that blocked the Milwaukee Road, and not that and not that swing gate. Oh, we can't talk about this picture at all.
No, you can't.
No, but here, like I was talking before, here's that slug set that came into Green Bay.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I actually have drawings for the engine house. So I've always wanted to do that too. Is make the engine house an HO scale.
So let me ask you a really dumb question to kind of go along with this. So we've talked about kind of narrowing. We're going back to the book, right?
Yep.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of hammer this last point home, and then we're going to go and do the locomotive of the show, and then we're going to pick this back up and close up shop tonight. But I want to talk about this just a little bit more. So we had you have essentially all the elements there to pull it all together. You've got pretty much everything here from the equipment, the era, the knowledge, and all that good stuff. So the is it the paralysis, and we've talked about how we the reason why not to model something, but what would be the catalyst for you to actually jump in and do that? I mean, would anyone besides you, here's the dumb question, would anyone besides you know? Have you ever went down in someone's basement and said, and because they haven't told you, now if they didn't tell you, then it's fair game, but have you ever went down in someone's basement and said, that's wrong?
Well, yes and no. Okay, so jokingly, my friend,
Not anymore, he isn't.
yeah, Dave Baucus, he models up north. He models way up north, the LS&I and the DSS&A and stuff like that. And he would come up to me. He came up to me. He said, "I'm really, I love the way Nestoria turned out." And Nestoria was a Y. And he says, "I love the way Nestoria turned out." He says, "Except for that one switch is backwards." He goes, "That bothers the hell out of me. But in order to get this in, I had to do it that way."
Yeah, right.
So then every time I go over to his house, I'd be like, "Boy, this would be a lot better layout, Dave, if Nestoria didn't have that backwards switch." So I'd always like crank that just a little bit because we're friends,
Yeah, but would you have known had he not?
If he never told me that, I never would have known. Now,
yeah.
Luke, on the other hand, I worked with him.
Yeah.
And him and I literally worked a job together that went on his entire layout.
Yeah, right.
So I'd be asking, he'd ask me a question. I'm like, well, you got to put that in because it's right there. Well, I don't know. You got to put that in. How are you not going to have that on your layout? It's right there. It's like you model the C&W that's 60 feet away, but you won't model this spur track that's 10 feet away. I'm like, really? So, and there again, him and I, very close friends and stuff like that.
Maybe not after today, but
well, he does the same thing to me though.
That's good.
But the thing is, though, is he also says when he wants an honest opinion about something, he'll ask me because, oh boy, see, I kind of felt like this was what was going to happen tonight. But he asked me because he knows I'm not going to sugarcoat an answer for him. You know what I mean? If I think something is kind of a bad idea, I'm going to tell him I think it's a bad idea, or I'm going to try to give him an alternative way of doing something rather than just saying, "Oh, that's a great idea," which a lot of people do. And so he'll ask me for my opinion, knowing that he's going to get the hammer possibly, but. I always tell him, I said the only problem with the Sioux line is that it's not orange and black. That's what I always tell him.
That is really the only problem with the Sioux line.
It is. I am
green and yellow.
I am a member of the Sioux Society. I am a member of the Sioux Historical Society, only to be a thorn in everybody's side to talk about Lake States. Me, never. But honestly, there's a huge part of the Sioux Society that after the Milwaukee Road got bought, a lot of people think the Sioux line died off, and it really didn't. There's like a taboo to talk about after the Milwaukee Road Sioux line. It's kind of taboo, and I don't believe in that kind of stuff. It's still railroad history, and so, I'm always willing to help people fix it. Whether they want to hear my fixes or not, or something completely different. I'm always nice about it.
So yeah,
I have given Luke a lot of bad ideas. So but yeah, honestly, I'm a member of the Sioux Society, and that's the part of the line that interests me is because the Sioux line bought the part of the line that I'm interested in.
Sure.
So that's what I started. I started a Lake States Facebook group based solely around lakes. This Lake States between what was it, February or something like that of 1986 to October
Yeah.
October
Yeah.
10th of 1987, because on October 11th of 1987, the Wisconsin Central took everything over.
Right.
So I'm focused on that one spot, and it's been really popular. I mean, there's a lot of people coming out. It's a lot of people coming out and talking about it, and it's really kind of neat. I've learned a lot about what the Sioux Line was up to during that time period. It was really it's been really interesting. So
Yeah. I think I'm gonna just jump in blindly and start building this little, I guess, diorama or module.
I think it's a good idea.
It's not that I'm bored with my railroad, far from it. It's just something that I want to do, right? And I'm gonna give it a try and see if it turns out, and if it doesn't, then I can just throw it away. Um, and
Well-
it'll go in the fail pile, but I'll have learned a ton of stuff. So I think I'm just gonna give it a whirl, and we'll see what happens.
No, maybe what you and I should do, maybe we should both do like a little.
Do your thing. You do your thing, and I'll do mine.
Yeah,
and
and
then we'll
do like a little series on each one of them.
Yeah.
You're better at doing that kind of stuff than I am. I'm not good at the editing stuff. You're way better at it than I am. But
Squirrel.
Yep, squirrel, shiny. So I like that idea. Maybe I'll dive into that Tavel thing now. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so let's take a commercial break here.
It was an hour and a half we nailed out on that.
Yeah, that was weird. We just kind of kept rolling here, and that's fine. And I'm excited for that. It's just man, that was something else. So yeah, we'll do a quick commercial break here, and then we'll introduce the next segment of the show. So sit tight here for the ad du jour. Again, hashtag not sponsored. So every model railroader has a story to tell. What's yours? Make sure you check out Around the Layout podcast. Ray Arnott has a wonderful show, and you can find him on all of the major podcast platforms, and he's also can be found at aroundthelayout.com. So make sure you check that out. And guess what? We're going to have the Greasy Meat Hands Band introduce the next segment here for Mike. So, yeah, I think so. We'll see if this works.
Those were so ugly when they got them. Holy cow! I mean, they were just absolute, like literal train wrecks when those guys got those things.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% on board with their new paint scheme for them, but it's starting to grow on me just a little bit. It's
you know what? Take pictures of them, because one day they're going to be gone.
I know that doesn't Ray say that all the time?
Yeah, he does, and that's a good segue back to the Around the Layout podcast. I'm wearing some of their merch tonight, as always. So make sure you check out Ray and his fantastic show as well. So, commercial break. You mean intermission? Yeah, it's an hour and a half. It's a lot of fun.
We come back on the other side of it. No more talking about my stuff. It's all you.
Yeah, we're going to talk about my stuff. So there won't be much to talk about, and then we'll close up the show here. So, but anyways, let's take a quick gander here. Locomotive of the show. What do we got going on tonight?
This has been a long time coming. Okay, so I get to do my little.
So last time we had Locomotive of the show, we had the Mikado, right? It was a steam locomotive.
Yeah,
and then we decided to spin the wheel of Locomotive Wonder.
Hey, we did.
And what do we have now?
Watch this. Look at that. Oh, did I do that right? Oh, there we go.
Not
Right.
sure.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
The TR4A and B. I'm mixing them all. And the Wheel of Locomotive Wonder ended up on the TR4A. And I decided to combine the A's and the B's together.
Right, because it's our show, and we
our
can
show
do what
and
we want.
And they were built in sets. So,
There you go.
Why not?
Sure.
So I tried to do this background like the old EMD switch engine, like the demonstrators. I tried to make it look like that, and then the builder plate. I thought that was kind of neat. But
That
anyway,
was cute.
yeah,
That was cute. I like that.
So the SW7, it began production in October of 1949, and it ended in January of 1951. A TR4 is an SW7 with a cabless locomotive behind it. So it's an A and a B, basically a cow and a calf. As you remember hearing those terms before,
Sure.
a cow and a calf. Now, if you want to pause and take, when you watch this back, you want to pause and take a look at this stuff. There's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo right here.
I'm seeing that.
I'm not going to go through it all, but this is all of the specs for the TR4A and B. They are. It had the 567A 6-cylinder prime mover in it. Produced 1,200 horsepower. They could go 65 miles an hour, believe it or not, which is actually. I've gone 20 in a switch engine before, and I thought we were going to fall off the track. I can't imagine going. I've actually gone 40 on an SW1500 one time because.
Did you feel like you were going to go into orbit?
I thought we were going into pickers like you wouldn't believe. I thought that was the last time I was ever going to do that. It was
going in the pickers.
Yeah, it was so unsettling. It was just whatever. But yeah, it here's all the information that you need for the TR4.
The technical specs for the TR4A and B.
And B. Here are the railroads that actually had the TR4As for the most part. And I say A because the Bs are something else. They're on if I remember how I did this, they're on a different roster.
But these are bad Canadian joke coming. The A's.
The A's. Yeah. But Santa Fe, the Baltimore and Ohio had them. And technically, I'll get into this a little bit later. I'll probably reiterate this, but the Baltimore and Ohio locomotives were actually built for the Chesapeake in Ohio. But I could find zero information on the C&O. It was almost like they built them for the C&O and were immediately transferred to the B&O or something along those lines.
Really?
It was. I could not find a single photograph for a C&O one. The Belt Railway of Chicago. Milwaukee Road. Then on the second-hand market, the Escanaba and Lake Superior, ILSX, which is Independent Locomotive Services, I believe is the name of the company, and then Minnesota Northern. Those had, and as a matter of fact, the ILSX unit and the ELS unit are the same locomotive. So not many of them survive to this day. That's it. And as far as TR4As go, the TR4Bs, the last one is very interesting, but you had the same thing: Santa Fe, B&O, BRC.
Yeah, the matching pair, right?
Yep. As a rule, they were all matching pairs. ILSX only had those two, and then Minnesota Northern had the one. And I'll get into that web asset management. That's what, for those that you don't know what Watco uses WAMX as their WAMX. But it stands for web asset management is the name of is what the reporting marks stand for. Yeah. So that 1211, we'll get to that because that is a really interesting situation with that locomotive. So here we have just some. We're just going to go through some of the roster stuff and make some little point out some things. Here's a photo of the Santa Fe unit. These are the former demonstrator units. Could not find any pictures of them in demonstrator paint, so they may have been demonstrators as painted as Santa Fe. Who knows? But renumbered to 1418L in 1974, and then they were rebuilt into. Okay, so SSB 1200 stands for, I want to say it's something San Bernardino. It's from the San Bernardino shops. And it's, I believe it's Switcher San Bernardino or something.
I was just going to say a super San Bernardino.
Yeah, it's something along those lines, but it was rebuilt in 79 to an SSB 1200 and renumbered 1242. Here,
Ooh.
yeah, B unit. Now, interesting thing on the A. Notice there's like I don't know if this is a headlight right here or what that is, but there's no
flashlight taped to the top of the roof.
But there's no headlight here.
Yeah.
That's because the headlight is on the other end of the B unit. And if you notice, the B unit has no steps at all. They
got the drop step to get across there in the center.
They have a small, it's not even a drop step. It's just a square plate that's welded in there. Yeah, it's crazy. These things are, and I'll show you a picture. I have a picture of them drawbarred together of what the drawbar looks like somewhere in here. So the B units are very interesting. But right here where this door is open, that is where your inspection card would be. That's where all sorts of your like independent controls and things of that nature. I think that's what's behind this door are the controls. Here you have this is the SSB 1200. Basically, it looks the same. It's just been rebuilt. And then I am not a fan of the way Santa Fe did this. They should have just left it solid. I'm sorry, but this does.
The little mini war bonnet there?
The mini war bonnet, not an attractive look if you ask me, but I know that's blasphemy for the Santa Fe guys. I'm sorry, but it's just...
The silver stacks, though. Those are sharp.
Yeah, I like the silver stacks. That's really kind of neat. But if you look, here it is when it got renumbered. Here it is when it got rebuilt. It got all sorts of neat little things. It lost its single chime horn. It got it looks like a dual chime or maybe a 3-chime horn.
Dually.
It's got a radio, an antenna plate on it. It got a beacon, a rotary beacon to it. A Stratolite type beacon, which is what Santa Fe knew. It lost its. You notice it has friction bearings on the picture on the left.
It's got
roller bearings, but yet they use the same trucks and the same side frames. They just took the friction bearing covers off and exposed the roller bearings.
Huh.
It has a speedometer on it now. I mean,
oh yeah,
all sorts of different things. It's so three different eras of the same locomotive.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Here's another picture. Here's a picture. You can see the back of the B unit really well. You can see there's the headlight. Look at that awesome box car right there. Look at that. Isn't that something?
No, I don't like it.
I know.
I've been just berated for my choice in railroad.
Yep.
Oh, good golly.
So here's the Baltimore and Ohio 9622. Kind of a different, B&O typically centered their lettering on their locomotive, and for whatever reason they chose to move this. Thankfully for us modelers, they decided it's not on the louvers.
Right.
So thank you B&O for doing that. That's kind of neat. And so here it's just pretty much, it has the difference with this one. It has full length handrails on both of these photos, which is kind of, it's kind of slick, right? But no drop steps and no MU. So on the front, yeah. So here's this B unit right here that's behind the 9622. That one got painted up in chassis colors.
Oh, cool.
Which is actually kind of slick. It's actually, but if we go back to the Santa Fe's, do you notice there's no handbrake here? You can't see any handbrake.
What are these, snowflakes?
I don't know if the handbrake is on the inside here or what, but on the chest, on the B&O one, the handbrake is right here.
Right there on the platform.
Yeah, and it also has the full-length handrails. And it has a drop step. This one has a drop step with the big angled grab irons.
Yeah, and so the other one though, I mean, that looked like it was drawbarred in. This one looks like is it drawbarred in to the other one?
I think this one has actually got a knuckle to it.
I thought, yeah, because I thought the first picture of that, if you go back and you look at that 9622 there on the left.
Right here. Or
no. Go back to the B&O. There you go. And you can see it doesn't look like it's connected up to anything. It's just hanging out there.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a knuckle there. So I think this has just got a knuckle on the end of it. Here's another picture of it pulling a chassis passenger special. And this is where you could see all the controls. So the engineer and the fireman could actually see the controls, like all the gauges and everything from the control stand that would normally be where the engineer would sit. There's a glass window here that you could see the gauges for this locomotive to see what it was doing. You could see whether it was loading properly. You could see what its air was doing. You could see all that stuff.
Huh. That's outstanding.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Here's a picture of now this one looks like it's drawbarred together, so it because of how close it is. Okay. So but they were built, as I said, they were built as a C&O 6000A and 6001A. So I've never found any photos of it, but yeah, here's another one, the 9624. Then we got the BRC. These were built in September of 1950. And these are pretty cool. The BRC ones are pretty neat. They've got huge little
lights.
The headlight, the regular single bulb headlight. But they're really kind of interesting because they're so plain that they're kind of neat, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Oh, I gotcha. Because they're fairly basic. So,
but they have different paint schemes.
Yeah.
If you look at this paint scheme, look at how ornate they did with the paint schemes, with the double stripe over the cab and the arch coming down with the 3 stripes in the front and the logo down low. Then you look at this one and it's completely more modern with kind of almost a CB&Q type.
I was going to say, it looks like Burlington unit.
Yeah, it looks very CB&Q type,
Yeah, that's awesome.
But if you'll notice, the B unit, again, has got the rear headlight. Whereas the A unit does not have that. And then this has got the nose steps, and it does not have full-length handrails. It's got the small.
It's more like the Santa Fe one.
More like the Santa Fe one. Here are a few other pictures. Oops. There's a couple of other pictures. This is the same set. Really, like I say, they're just so stinking interesting. The paint scheme alone is just interesting to me.
They're really cool little locomotive sets.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Now, one other thing is if you look at the radiator here on this one, see how it's full length? On the 510, it almost looks as if they've got that stripe that goes across, almost like it's got half of a radiator, a smaller radiator. Here we have another BRC set. There were a lot of pictures of BRC sets, so there's quite a few of them in here. Here's our A unit.
Yeah.
Now, here's the drawbar right here.
Huh.
That's what it was. So you see how short that is?
Yeah.
And then the pin from the A unit would go where that I'm going to say clevis is, and it would go into obviously a slot, and then a pin would go in there, and that's how they drawbarred the locomotives together. And if you notice, you see how narrow and oval shaped the
little window is?
little window is compared to the Santa Fe one, which was ginormous.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, really, and now here's the 516 with the knuckle on that same end. So at one point they got rid of the drawbar and they put a regular knuckle on.
Huh.
Yeah.
This is wild.
But
what an interesting little locomotive.
But yet no, and look at a pilot on it. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing here. You know, I mean, it almost looks like you could walk under here. But I mean, you know,
maybe you got up it on. You know, you crawled up from the inside.
Sure.
Or you jumped. I mean, yeah, I guess you have to wear your Air Jordans and jump up there.
But here the door is down, and you can kind of see the controls and see that whole cabinet and everything else like that. The Milwaukee Road had a handful of them. This picture here is kind of interesting. And in typical Milwaukee Road fashion, they can't just leave anything to be. They had to put their stamp on it.
Let's put an F.
Let's put an F. A BF unit in there, an F7B in the middle of your hump set, you know. But they had the typical Milwaukee Road spark arresters on them at one point. The A units did. The Bs had straight stacks, but the Bs had this box that's on top here. Here, I'll
like almost like a winterization hatch.
No, I've heard that it's either an electrical box or it had something to do with like hump controls. I've heard that, or you know, I've heard that it was an air filter at one time. I'm not sure if it really is an answer to that. Here's the 962 or the 692. Here's what's interesting about the Milwaukee Road stuff. The B units were MU-able on both ends. So you would end up with an ABB set of calves, cow and calves.
Can we just pause here? This is why I hate the Milwaukee Road. Okay. And we're gonna ask the question here from David Winter.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of those funky spark arrestor designs? Because if you look at this ABB set here, the trailing unit, what is on there?
Yep,
it has them freaking weirdo spark arresters.
You mean these awesome things?
Yes, I meant those awesome things.
They're exactly what they're designed for. They're a spark arrestor.
Yeah, so what it does is use like the Horst version or something like that, you know, any other respected model
because in typical Milwaukee fashion, I believe these were shop built. I think no other railroad ever had these. Right. Only the Milwaukee Road had this design. And I want to say that these may have been shop built, a Milwaukee design. And the Milwaukee Road was synonymous with creating and building their own stuff in-house rather than buying from somebody else. They would, you know, probably why they're not around anymore, but whatever. So, but yeah, this picture is amazing. This is an awesome picture.
Yeah.
So here's some more. No, the other difference between the Milwaukee is the Milwaukee A units, cab switchers, they had headlights on the back.
See that?
So, and that's because they would split them up, obviously. So here again, you have the A and the B, and they're switched around for whatever reason. They switched them around. No little windows. If you look, no little windows underneath here,
Oh
like
yeah,
like on typical SW7s and
and
SW1200s and
cabs.
stuff, and
Yeah,
cab switchers. No little windows. That's because there was no reason to look down at this engine because there should be nobody here. There's no reason to look this way. You needed to look out over the top of all of this, not down in here,
not in front of you.
not in front of you. So here's again, Milwaukee Road. Now here they didn't have the spark arresters on. Here's this box again. Here's the box with the 690B had the spark arresters. So why this unit had the spark arresters and the rest of them didn't, I have no idea. But makes for a cool little model.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
I bet you do. So
no, I mean, I'll give credit. I'm giving you a hard time. I
Oh,
actually
no,
like
that's-
Milwaukee Road, but yeah, it's just it would be a really cool model.
it would be. I mean, I don't know that, unless you're modeling the hump, these didn't really leave Bensonville or leave the Muskego, Milwaukee area, or like maybe Pig's Eye Yard.
Okay.
They were in Minneapolis. These were pretty much relegated to your hump facilities. That's what they were there for. That they weren't mainline. They weren't for industry stuff or nothing like that. But if you look right here, it's made it up with a GP9.
Yeah.
So you could use almost any locomotive you had around at the time with these, which is kind of different than the other railroads, BRC. I just wanted to show a difference in the paint schemes. Here's 1975 and 5 years later in 1980. Pick your poison. They're both cool. I can't say I like one better than the other. They're kind of both neat in their own way,
Yep.
Now, secondhand market on these, I don't know the number, but it was this Binfay coal. How would you pronounce that? This coal company. This coal company had this as a former Milwaukee Road TR4A. BCC, yeah. So it's actually kind of a sharp paint scheme on there. It's kind of neat. Now, ILSX 907.
Ah, yes.
All right. This engine is kind of synonymous
to
the Wisconsin folk. It was it went to Tri-County Co-op, obviously. You can see the label right there, the decal right there. And it worked there for a while. And then we'll get to where that ended up. The Minnesota Northern had a pair of the BRC 505A.
With normal spark arresters.
No. Sure, with the canister type spark arresters that every boring railroad in the United States had. Way to be an individual. But so, in all seriousness, they basically kept the BRC type paint scheme on it, and just re-lettered it. And it actually, I kind of like the italicized lettering on it. It's kind of sharp looking. Here's a picture of the other end of it. Look at the snow. Look at the size of the plow they put on that thing, and ditch lights. So
it is in Minnesota. I mean,
it is in Minnesota.
They do get some pretty nasty winters out there.
I just think this is kind of a neat set. If you were modeling a short line or wanted a freelance railroad, here's a great idea for a locomotive set. Snow plow, ditch lights. It's got ditch lights, but yet they maintain the big canister headlight, which is interesting. And the same with this. It has polling pockets. That's what this right here. This little
is that what that is?
That's called a polling pocket. Back in the day, when it was legal to do so, a lot of locomotives had a big timber pole. And what they would do is if a car wasn't in the clear, they would put it here and then on a pocket on the box car, and they would push that car out of the way so it would be in the clear without damaging or hitting the locomotive. It was very dangerous, extremely dangerous. Probably a reason why it's not a practice anymore. Here's another picture of the B unit. Okay. This locomotive has got a history like you wouldn't believe. Okay, so do you remember I said that this was in the TR4B roster?
Yes.
That's because it was a TR4B.
Really?
Yes. At one time, this locomotive was the 2419A that was built in 1951. And it was rebuilt as an SSB 1200, like the B unit portion of it, by Santa Fe. It ended up getting a cab at one point. That's
wow.
Yeah. That's here's this was a B unit, and it looks just like any other SW7 that you would have seen, except for the headlight. If you notice the headlight right here is kind of a little funky. It's got a little bit. Yeah, they took the old one off and put a new twin sealed beam one on the housing, and that's kind of what it ends up. But how interesting is that, right? I mean, I thought that was crazy cool. And here's those, generic, unoriginal spark arresters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look really good.
Now, the Escanaba Lake Superior 1202. This is that ILSX unit we saw earlier, the 907. This is an engine that is still running on the ELS today. As a matter of fact, I took this photo up in Menominee or Marinette, up in Marinette.
Yeah.
And if you notice, I don't know why they did this, but they put the exhaust stack through the spark arrest. I don't know. It's the ELS.
Any port in the storm.
I guess, whatever. But here again, they maintained the large single headlight also. Here's another picture of it up in Marinette.
Oh, that's cool.
On the back end of it. Notice it's got the little window here, but not on the side. On that side. What?
It's just, yep. That's what they would do.
Yep, that's. Now, I also took these pictures. This would have been back in 2000. Oh, what year was that? Man, it was myself and Dan Dyer, I think, and Mike Phelan. We went over to La Crosse, and we're over at the BN. We were doing some research for Dan Dyer's layout, and these were sitting there, going someplace. I don't know where they were on their way to, but these were sitting in the yard at La Crosse in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Oh, they were en route to the Minnesota Northern. Obviously, I wrote that right there. This is a set that we saw earlier, and that is all I got for the short
locomotive
line
of the show.
Locomotive of the show. Now, I gotta get back to you. Hold on a minute.
We got to bring up the wheel of Locomotive Wonder.
Yeah, we're gonna bring up the wheel of Locomotive Wonder. Present, share screen, wheel of Locomotive Wonder, and share. Look at this.
Ooh.
All right, I better get a piece of paper and write this down because this is gonna be. I got a feeling I'm gonna have to do some major ciphering on this next one. All right, are we all ready?
I think so. I think we're ready to roll.
Let's go. Let's see what we got here. I have no idea what it is. I can't read any of them.
Another steam engine?
The Alco 280.
Now is that a consolidation?
Let's go with But that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove that one. The Alco 280 is going to be the next locomotive of the show.
Outstanding.
Now I got to see if I can. How do I? Oh, stop sharing. There we go. So that's that was it.
The consolidation. Awesome.
There were a lot of these built.
there is much rejoicing from the section crew about the 280 Darby Rail Services, David Winther, Late Night Model Railroad.
These guys are lots and slots. Yep.
Lots and slots. That's right. So that was a really good presentation, Mike. Thank you for putting that together. And just, I think you don't get enough credit for putting that. You don't for the locomotive of the show and the short line of the show. Mike does a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. And so, I handle the day-to-day production stuff, but Mike is the research expert. So kudos to him and all the hard work there. So thanks, Mike, for doing that.
Yeah, I like doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it looks like we're getting a lot of positive feedback on the locomotive of the show segment. So I think we're going to keep rolling with that. So let's just let's do a little bit of recap here on our main topic tonight. So how do you pick a railroad to model? And we kind of went through kind of a process, right? What connection do we personally have to a railroad? It may not be that, because you and I have the story of, we both kind of grew up around it, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it could be something like a memory, right? You went on vacation out to, let's say, Glacier National Park, and you were at the hotel.
That hotel.
That they have out there right on the BNSF main line now. Yeah. And so I always call it the Waldorf Astoria or something like that, but something, it's not it. But
it's the one that just got bought by somebody else. It just got bought, but
you go on vacation and you essentially make a connection with the railroad. So I think that's the big starting place. And if you watch like Boomer on his channel, and we talk about him quite a bit, and he's been on the show a few times, but he goes into the I guess the connection that he has to the SRY. The Isaac Walton. That's it.
Isaac Walton. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Nick LaRusso. And I think that's a good spot to start. And then, try and make a connection with it, because if you have the passion that, behind it, to get to Anthony Borden's question, like, how am I never going to be bored? You'll never be bored if you're really passionate about the topic. And I think, then you can just kind of narrow in on, okay, so do I like the whole railroad? Do I like just a little part of it? And then what do I like about that little part, like the equipment, the operations, those types of things. I absolutely love the Chicago Northwestern, and I'm part of their historical society, right? I love the books, right? This Peninsula Division.
Book, by the way, that's a very good book.
This book has really been, I guess, a big influence to me. What I did here was with the Mascoutin Valley was I brought in all of the elements, much like you did, right? That I loved about the Chicago Northwestern, the weird little branch lines that they had. And they got rid of all that in the 80s. And like, I don't like the Chicago Northwestern in the 90s, before they got gobbled up, because they got rid of all the cool stuff, all the branch lines,
right?
All of the neat equipment, right?
Yep.
They went and standardized everything. And, that's not the railroad that I liked, so and I incorporated all of those little things into my freelance railroad that I've been building. So all the things that I really liked, the equipment, the type of operation, and then I, use that to tell this type of story. So I think for me, that's how I kind of picked my topic. I think at some point when I get my skills a little better, I will go back and do the marsh line. And I think that's going to be my legacy layout. The
How
one I
far
do
did
before I
that
die.
go? How far? Because that came out of
So-
Fond du Lac, right? That
Yep.
started out of Fond du Lac. How far north did that go?
So it went northwest to all the way, I want to say, to Wisconsin Rapids. And then from Wisconsin Rapids, it went to Marshfield with joint trackage of the Sioux line out of Rapids.
Really?
Yeah. And then in 1972, a washout happened between Wisconsin Rapids and Bancroft, Wisconsin, at a town called Kellner, and they never repaired it.
So
then
just
it
basically ended right at Kellner then.
Yeah, pretty much right where that washout was. And then they had this beautiful, beautiful through truss bridge that crossed the Wisconsin River, and it was, it was really, really a cool line. But it got, I guess it was gobbled up by the deferred maintenance year over year and the declining branch line.
It's a
traffic.
bad thing in the state of Wisconsin that a lot of the railroads around here did that. The two railroads, Milwaukee Road and the C&W, but they deferred maintenance. The line to Viroqua on the Milwaukee Road was the Mineral Point branch. That was another one. These are all iconic Milwaukee Road branch lines that they depict two rails and grass.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Green ballast, right?
They're green ballast. Yeah, they're green ballast. But that's really actually kind of interesting that you're thinking about possibly doing that. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Because it's what would you? Well, you asked me earlier.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you now. If you had the $1 million salary cap, would you do the entire length of the marsh line?
No.
What would you do?
I would do the Chicago Northwestern ore line from Escanaba, Michigan, all the way out to Stambo. And then I would have the interchange with the Milwaukee Road in
Nice.
Iron Mountain and Antoine there.
Nice.
So if I had unlimited resources, that's what I would do.
That's a big territory to have to cover too, because you'd almost need it in order to do it. We go back to the phrase, you said it before, in order to do it justice, quote unquote, because that's kind of an intricate little area. With some joint trackage and parallel trackages and just the way it's all set up, one of the other things, I don't know that we really tipped or talked about it a whole lot, but we didn't really talk about influences outside of personal, like you were talking about going on a vacation or stuff like that. We never really talked about like modern day choices of being able to pick about stuff, or a layout or a railroad.
Right.
Sorry, like the internet. I mean, how many times have you gone and stumbled across a photo of something and thought, "Oh, that's kind of neat," and that's kind of cool. I mean, granted, your selection of what the model is vastly different than what it was 35, 40 years ago. When we were growing up, it's vastly different.
Right.
But yet I think it's got a lot of merits in its own respects, that we didn't have,
Yeah. And like so it kind of goes both ways. If you want to model a prototype, the internet is a fantastic trove of information, right?
Yeah.
You want what if you want to model a freelance railroad or model something like it, like Split
Yeah.
Rock?
Yeah.
So like with his Split Rock Mining Company layout, I draw a lot of inspiration from that,
Yep.
you know,
Absolutely.
and I couldn't have done that without the internet.
No.
I would have had to wait for an article to pop up in RMC. So
And the thing is like there's so many people out there that are being helpful with like putting out blogs and putting out YouTube videos, and I
Facebook
mean the
groups,
Facebook groups, and oh my God, you can dive in. I mean, Facebook that's a rabbit hole onto it, all onto itself. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah,
so it's such a deep cavernous thing that you can get lost in it. I mean,
right,
and that gets into another issue. If you start diving into social media aspects of trying to figure out what you want to do, and every time you turn around there's another little rabbit hole, and it can get very daunting, to try to pin something down, really, unless you just draw that line in the sand and say, I'm not going any farther than this, and stick with it. IO groups are another thing. I don't know if I'm still a member of a bunch of them, but those email groups are, I don't know how much longer those are going to be around.
yeah,
I
I'm
I
not
kind
I'm
of
not sure either.
I kind of tend to not pay a whole. I have my inbox is filled with those things that I don't really look at a whole lot.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's interesting, that's for sure. So yeah, I think um, you know, I think even back in the 80s, and when we brought up the topic tonight and kind of talked about the this book from Kalmbach, that I got when I was a kid, I think it, any way you slice it, I think the advice still kind of holds true to this day, right?
yeah,
Just kind of talking about, especially this last one where he talks about, you know, what to model and why, right? And I think that everything that we kind of covered goes back to those points, right? Like, what are the features that you like? Do you like the equipment? Do you like you know, the operations? Do you like the scenery? Do you like the colors of it? And I think one of the things that I didn't talk about was the connection to it, and I think that helps to drive the passion. So I think there's a bit of bringing in the old with a bit of the new here, with having that passion or that connection to the subject that you want to model. I think it's really, really important part of
yeah,
not staying with it, finishing it, getting it to a point where you're like, this is really good. I like this, right?
yeah.
So
I find myself now starting to go out of my way trying to find Milwaukee Road things out in the wild, so to speak.
yeah, yeah,
um, and there's certain things that I could tell. You could just sometimes you get into it. Like I'm sure, like we had a matter of fact, we just man, I should have downloaded. I didn't take pictures of them today because I was actually moving on the train, but there were two of those C&W covered hoppers. Myself and Ray and Andy, we were having a Ray and Arnott. We were having a discussion here yesterday, and Ray had posted a photo. I believe it was an AOK covered hopper or something along those lines, and it was an old Chicago Northwestern covered hopper. And I'm like,
right.
oh, that's cool. We have those coming to Green Bay all the time for the Limehouse that we have. And I'm like, oh, look at this. Here are the two MW or MW, whatever the heck they are.
CX,
MWCX,
MWCX ones.
MWCX covered hoppers sitting right there out in the open at the Limehouse. I'm sitting there going, huh, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Here they
right.
are. Like, and so, finding those things today is really kind of neat, for me at least, finding that kind of stuff. It kind of
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
you a connection back to the past. But one thing we didn't, and real quick, one thing I don't think we talked about is the rail fanning aspect of layout selection.
Hmm.
That's because some railroads are actually a little easier to rail fan than others. Fallen flags obviously are, you can't just go
What's
out.
a fallen flag?
Fallen flag, railroad that no longer exists. Milwaukee
Hmm.
Road, Erie, Lackawanna, Conrail. Well, Conrail technically does still exist, but I mean
Chicago Northwestern.
Chicago Northwestern, MKT. What's it?
Sioux Line.
The Sioux Line. Sioux Line technically is a fallen flag. I mean, it is. I mean, part of
the CP now.
Yeah. Western Pacific. Southern Pacific, Denver and Rio Grande Western. Any of the railroads, and then the umpteen trillion East Coast railroads that there were, the Pennsylvania, New York Central, things like that. Penn Central. The greatest failure railroad of the whole of the 20th century. I tell you what, I have like a soft spot for the Penn Central.
We should do a show on the Penn Central.
Oh, that's a good idea. We should. Let's figure out how we're going to do that.
We should do a show on the Penn Central.
Yep, I like that. It's the Delaware and Hudson. I see D&H up there. But, those kind of railroads, those are fallen flags. The railroads that no longer exist. And it could be short lines. It could be class ones. It could be regionals. It doesn't matter what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin Central is technically a fallen flag. They no longer, exist as they were. So, Green Bay and Western, another one, but so being able to rail fan a fallen flag, you're relegated to your historical societies and your books and things like that and the internet, right? Whereas today you can go and pick, well, I'll just say the St. Mary's River Railroad. I'm just going to pick that one.
Yeah, right.
That's great if you can get to Idaho to get to it. Otherwise you're still stuck to the internet and things like that. But Google Maps is another good way of doing it. Google Maps can really show you the track layout of how things are. You can go back. Andy, what is the name of the thing where you could go back in the U.S. Geological Survey?
Yeah, it's the USGS.
The USGS has got maps.
Earth Explorer.
Yeah, what's it called?
Earth Explorer.
Yeah, Earth Explorer, and you can go back sometimes decades to see
aerial photos.
You get aerial photos of of towns and things like that
for free.
Yeah, that's there you go. The USGS. So it's there's those aspects of selecting a railroad also that how much work do you want to put into your research?
Right.
And that's that's a whole that's a whole rabbit hole and show onto itself, and also
yeah, for sure. So I think it's I think it's safe to say that we covered a good part of this topic this evening, but there's quite a bit more that we could do, and I think there's certainly more stuff to talk about, which I think we probably should do in another show at some point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly, there's a rail fanning aspect. Being able to go and stand there physically in space is something that we need to dedicate some time to.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I love these comments. Are amazing.
What's that?
Some of the comments, just like right here, like like what Greg Bonanza off the. You get to know things, right? The old SP,
right?
Out of Sparks, Nevada. I mean, it's here's another one. Here's a cool one.
That's the same one.
Oh, same one because it moved on me. It moved on me. They use the old right away of the Wheeling and Lake Erie and Nickel Plate in the Norfolk Western. The new Wheeling and Lake Erie does. Well, how cool is that? So there you have an opportunity. You could actually take one piece of segment of that railroad, the new Wheeling and Lake Erie, and create 3 different railroads out of it.
Yeah,
possibly 4. I mean, it's really the stuff is so endless and so limitless.
Again, we're gonna have topics for shows for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Oh, somebody just said soft spot for the Twin Cities. I'm going there this weekend.
Hey, let's talk about that real briefly. So you're gonna be heading up to Minnesota this weekend,
Yes, I am.
and what are you doing up there?
The Twin Cities division of the NMRA is having their annual modelers retreat in Plymouth, Minnesota. And boy, I wish I had known I was going to say this. I would have pulled up a promo thing for it, but hey, I don't. Go to, I believe it is just look up Twin Cities division in the NMRA. And there should be, I know they have a Facebook group and it's all over Facebook about this. Let's see here. What is this coming Friday, April 15th and 16th. It's in Plymouth, Minnesota.
It's March 15th
Or
and
March.
16th.
March. Man, what is wrong with me tonight?
Not sure.
March 15th and 16th. And I'm going to be bringing stuff like this. It's kind of, they do an RPM style of meat. They're going to have many good clinicians. It's a lot of fun. A lot of good information is there. You get to meet a lot of people. I'm fairly certain. I'm hoping, fingers are crossed, William Sampson is going to be there. Thomas Gazier, or AKA Split Rock, will be there. Ken Zeska will also be there as well. Crossing Gaze. Luke Lemons from the Sioux Second Sub will be there. And the list of guys that are going to be there are going to go on. So it's Bob Rivard will be there from his Sioux line first sub, I believe is. No, he does the Sioux Second Sub too, I believe. I can't remember.
He doesn't. No. He does something else.
He does something. No, it's not the second sub. I thought he did the first sub. But anyways, the Sioux line, he does an amazing Sioux line modeler. Anyway, he's going to be there with any kind of luck, and it's going to be it's a really good day or 2 days of a lot of a lot of good camaraderie, a lot of good models, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and a lot of information, and a lot of really, really, really good clinics that are typically there. So it's going to be if you can make it over to the Twin Cities this Friday and Saturday, come on over. And I'm not even sure how much it costs to get in, but it's not a whole lot. So
it's not.
It's not. I want to say it was like $10 or $15, if even that much. I want to say it's $15. Yeah. So head on over and take a look at that. I'll be there with some models like I got right here. I'm working on finishing. I'm not going to finish this. If you have models, you do show up, have models, bring your models. They don't need to be done. They don't need to be finished models. I'm actually going to bring what I'm working on here. This is one of my S-scale covered hoppers, my fertilizer covered hoppers that I shortened up, and I'm in the process of putting the roof hatches on. You can see how I have marked off and stuff like that. That's what I'm going to be doing here coming up. And then in April, I'll be at the if I'm awake for it, because I just realized I am completely red-eyeing the flight over there on Thursday. But I'm going to be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Colorado, in Denver. I'm going to be doing a meet and greet on Saturday and Sunday. I believe I'll have to pinpoint the time, but the last I heard, it was between noon and 1 in the afternoon. I'll be doing a meet and greet there at the show. So if you're in the Colorado area or planning on going to the Rocky Mountain Train Show, come on over and say hi, and do whatever you want. You can say hi or
just come by, say hi to Mike, and
or what else
you really think.
Tell me what you really think. That's not a problem.
Good.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting some new people out there because I really kind of feel like I'm not too sure where we are west of the Mississippi as far as modeler wise, and I'd really like to tap into those guys and get some of them on there because there's some amazing modelers out there. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So Mike's going to be on the road here, and that's going to be fun for him, and I'll be on the road and doing my day job. But yeah,
Sorry.
so that's all right.
And
I was
both
supposed to go
times,
to the modelers meet. Yeah,
both times, the modelers retreat, you got to go to. You're going to be gone, and then for Colorado, you got to be gone.
and I'll be gone for Colorado too.
But you won't be gone. We're going to drag you
St. Louis.
kicking and screaming into St. Louis,
St. Louis RPM is it's official. I will be attending,
which is going to be awesome.
Yeah, so I'm already booked travel and got a diary marker for that, so I'm good to go.
Rumor has it Ray's coming too.
Yeah, Ray from Around the Layout said he might come, or maybe is coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun in St. Louis. So
yeah, St. Louis is going to be a blast. It always is. So
yeah. So anyways, okay. So so next week we will be off. Yeah. David Winter says can't wait for St. Louis.
Yeah,
neither can we. That's for sure because he's coming through. And
the only thing I ask for St. Louis is Mother Nature, please, 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 no 107 degrees and no thunderstorms that take out the power right at the end of the show.
That's overrated.
That was horrible. I mean, I've never seen rain come down that hard sideways like that before.
Yeah, it was. I remember watching the radar.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Not great. So very good. So I guess we'll be back then in a couple of weeks for another show. I think we're going to line up maybe a short line of the show and a what's on your workbench.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to keep that in the works. And then coming back in April, we'll have Mike Rose from Crew Call with Mike Rose on the show. He's got some stuff that's going to dazzle us all, and
more trees.
And then I think Home Shops is going to be back on.
Yeah.
With a new announcement. So a lot of fun stuff coming up here from the second section, including second section on the road. So it's going to be great. So again, we'll do a little admin promo stuff here. Check us out on our Facebook group, the second section. Just make sure you answer the 3 questions or I will not let you into the group, but great modeling community there. And then again, the second section is out on Patreon. So I think I'm going to be posting my West Rosendale diorama build series out on the Patreon site. So $5 a month gets you some swag and backstage, I guess, access to the second section. So if you want to check us out there, it's Second Section Podcast on Patreon. So again, I want to thank everyone in the section crew tonight. It was a fantastic show. Great comments. You guys are fantastic.
Thank you very much, guys.
If you haven't yet give us a like tonight. It's a great way to support the show as well. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes of us. So, Mike, anything else to say before we sign off for tonight?
No, the community we've got is awesome. We've had a lot of good interaction tonight. Sorry, I apologize for being so long-winded on some of it. It's just that when I get going, you guys know how it is. When you put a quarter in me, there's no stopping. So you get what you get when you put you ask me a question.
You don't have a fit.
What's that?
You get what you get, and you don't have a fit. That's what I tell my son Henry. So.
Yep. So yeah, but I mean, I thought it was a great show. I thought it was really interesting.
Fun show tonight.
Yeah, it was fun. So yeah, and only other thing I want to say is good luck, guys. Honestly, good luck to all of you that are undecided. And I don't mean that in a joking way, but I honestly, because it is hard. It's a difficult process, and it's one that you're doing something for a long period of time here. So it's a
and if you need to ask, you can send Mike or I something in Facebook Messenger. We'll be happy to chat with you, or the Facebook group. Another good group of people.
I'll just pick one and tell you that's what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. Boy,
No,
you talk
that's
tough.
I talk all big, right?
Get him outside of the microphone, though. He shrinks. up.
I know.
No, that's good. All right, guys.
Yep.
So we'll see you guys all back in 2 weeks. And if you're going to the Modelers Retreat in Minnesota, have a great time. Post pictures because we'd love to see them. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.